wedding invitation arrived like a knife through silk. Her ex-fiancé Maxwell Sterling, the man who'd shattered her empire of trust, was marrying her former best friend. Sloane Everhart's hands trembled as she read the gold-embossed mockery, but it wasn't heartbreak that flooded her veins. It was something far more dangerous. She would attend. She would bring someone who'd make Maxwell question everything. She just never imagined that someone would be a broken single father who'd teach her that revenge tastes nothing like redemption. Stay with me until the end and comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. The November rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Everhart Industries' executive suite, each droplet a tiny fist against the glass fortress Sloane had built around herself. She stood there, 34 years old and worth more than most small countries, watching the city blur beneath the storm. The wedding invitation lay on her mahogany desk like a declaration of war, its elegant script a beautiful lie. Maxwell Sterling and Victoria Chen request the pleasure of your company. Victoria, her college roommate, the woman who'd held her hair back during freshman year hangovers, who'd sworn on her grandmother's grave that Maxwell was making moves on her behind Sloane's back, who'd cried crocodile tears when Sloane confronted them both. And Maxwell. God, she could still smell his cologne sometimes, that expensive bergamot blend that used to make her feel safe. 3 years had passed since she'd walked in on them in her own bed. In the penthouse, he'd convinced her to put in his name for tax purposes. Miss Everhart? Her assistant Marcus knocked softly. Your 3 o'clock is here. Cancel it. Her voice came out steadier than her hands. Cancel everything for today. Ma'am, it's the Beijing acquisition team. I said cancel it. The door clicked shut. Sloane pressed her forehead against the cold glass, letting the chill ground her. She'd built herself back from nothing. No, from less than nothing. From the smoking crater Maxwell had left behind. The media had feasted on her public humiliation. Tech heiress betrayed by fiancé and best friend. The board had nearly voted her out, claiming emotional instability. Her father, the great Theodore Everhart, who'd built this empire from scrap metal and stubbornness, had looked at her with such disappointment she'd wanted to disappear entirely. But she hadn't disappeared. She'd burned brighter, worked harder, slept less. She'd turned Everhart Industries from a modest tech firm into a $3 billion giant. She'd proven them all wrong. So why did this piece of paper make her feel like that 28-year-old girl again, standing in her bedroom doorway, watching her future writhe beneath Egyptian cotton sheets? Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Darling, I heard about the invitation. You don't have to go. But that was where her mother was wrong. She did have to go. Not going would be admitting they'd won, that they'd broken something in her that couldn't be repaired. She'd walk into that wedding with her head high and her heart locked away where no one could touch it again. The question was, who would she bring? She couldn't go alone. That would be fodder for every gossip blog in the city. She needed someone who'd make a statement, someone unexpected, someone who'd make Maxwell Sterling realize exactly what he'd thrown away. 3 blocks away, in a coffee shop that had seen better decades, Jack Whitmore was having the worst day of an already catastrophic year. The rejection letter from the insurance company lay crumpled in his jacket pocket, its words burned into his memory. Unfortunately, your daughter's surgery is classified as experimental and therefore not covered under your current plan. Experimental. As if Ellie's life was some kind of science project. He watched his 6-year-old daughter color at their corner table, her tiny tongue poking out in concentration. She was drawing their apartment again. She always drew their apartment, with its peeling wallpaper and broken radiator, but in her pictures, it looked like a palace. She'd inherited his dark hair, but her mother's optimism, that dangerous belief that the world might actually be kind. Daddy, look! Ellie held up her creation. I made the walls purple because purple is happy. It's beautiful, baby. He forced a smile, the kind that had become second nature since Rachel left, since the divorce papers arrived with a sticky note that said, I can't do broken anymore. The coffee shop door chimed and Jack glanced up from habit. He'd been picking up delivery gigs between his main job at the warehouse, always looking for the next opportunity to scrape together a few more dollars. The woman who entered looked like she'd stepped out of another dimension entirely. Armani suit that probably cost more than his annual rent. Hair that defied the rain outside. The kind of posture that came from never having to apologize for taking up space. She ordered a black coffee, no sugar, no cream, no humanity, and sat 2 tables away pulling out her phone with manicured fingers. Everything about her screamed money, from her subtle diamond earrings to the way she didn't even check the price menu. "Daddy, she's pretty," Ellie whispered loudly, because 6-year-olds had no concept of subtlety. The woman's eyes flicked up, meeting Jack's for a fraction of a second. Gray eyes, like storm clouds. She looked away immediately, but not before he caught something in her expression, a rawness that money couldn't hide. "Ellie?" "Shh," he murmured, but his daughter was already waving. "Hi." "I'm Ellie, this is my daddy. He's sad today, but he's still the best daddy." Jack wanted to melt into the floor. "Ellie, the lady doesn't want to." "It's fine." The woman's voice was like aged whiskey, smooth with an underlying burn. She looked at Ellie with something that might have been a smile if it had reached her eyes. "Hi, Ellie. That's a pretty picture. It's our house." Except better, because in real life, the ceiling leaks. Daddy puts buckets everywhere when it rains. Do you have buckets in your house? The woman blinked, clearly thrown by the question. "No, I don't have buckets." "Lucky," Ellie sighed dramatically. "Daddy says when I get better, we'll live somewhere without buckets." Jack saw the woman's gaze sharpen on the word better, saw her take in Ellie's pale complexion, the slight tremor in her small hands that the doctor said would get worse without surgery. He stood quickly, scooping Ellie up. "Come on, baby. Let's let the lady drink her coffee in peace." "But Daddy, I'll get you a cookie. How's that?" As he carried Ellie to the counter, he heard the woman's phone ring. Her voice carried despite her attempt at discretion. "No, Marcus, I don't need another MBA from Harvard. I need someone real, someone who won't look like every other venture capitalist in that room. Yes, for the Sterling wedding. No, I'm not out of my mind." Jack ordered Ellie's cookie, his mind elsewhere. The Sterling wedding. He knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Maxwell Sterling, the golden boy of tech, marrying some socialite in what the blogs were calling the wedding of the decade. He'd seen the woman before him in the business section, though her photos didn't do justice to the intensity of her presence. Sloane Everhart. The woman Maxwell Sterling had famously left 3 years ago in a scandal that had dominated headlines for months. When he turned back, she was watching him. Not Ellie. Him. "You need someone for the Sterling wedding," he said, the words coming out before his brain could stop them. "I need $50,000 for my daughter's surgery. I'll be whoever you need me to be for one night." The coffee shop seemed to hold its breath. Even the espresso machine stopped hissing. Sloane Everhart stared at him like he'd suggested they rob a bank together. "You're seriously propositioning me in a coffee shop?" "I'm seriously desperate." He set Ellie down in their chair, handed her the cookie. "Look, I heard you on the phone. You need someone unexpected, someone real. I'm real. I'm also running out of options, and my daughter is running out of time." She studied him, those storm cloud eyes taking in his worn jacket, his calloused hands, the exhaustion he wore like a second skin. "You don't even know me." "I know you're Sloane Everhart. I know Maxwell Sterling left you for someone else. I know you want to walk into that wedding and make him regret it." He kept his voice low, steady. "I also know what it's like to have someone you trust destroy everything. I'm not asking for charity. It's a business transaction." "Daddy, why are you talking to the pretty lady about business?" Ellie piped up, cookie crumbs decorating her chin. Sloane's expression shifted, something flickering behind her carefully constructed walls. She looked at Ellie, then back at Jack. "You have no idea what you're offering to walk into. I've worked construction, warehouse, delivery. I've been looked down on by rich people my whole life. I can handle one night of it. This wouldn't be just being looked down on. This would be walking into a room full of people who feed on weakness, who've been waiting 3 years to see me fall apart. You'd be under a microscope. Lady, I've been under a microscope since my wife left me with a sick kid and $20 in my wallet. I can handle your ex's wedding." She stood, smoothing down her skirt with precise movements. For a moment he thought she was going to leave, chalk him up as another crazy person in a city full of them. Then she pulled out a business card, pristine white with minimalist black text. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., My office. Bring your bank information and a clean suit if you have one. I don't. Then we'll get you one. She paused at Ellie's chair, dropped her voice to something almost gentle. Your daddy is going to help you get better, sweetheart. Ellie beamed up at her. Are you an angel? Daddy says angels help people. Sloane Everhart laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. No, definitely not an angel. She left, her heels clicking against the worn linoleum, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume and possibility. Jack stared at the business card, his hands shaking slightly. $50,000. Enough for Ellie's surgery, enough for the medications, enough to maybe, finally, be enough. Daddy, the pretty lady was sad, Ellie said, tugging on his sleeve. How do you know, baby? Her eyes. They look like yours when you think I'm sleeping. Jack pulled his daughter close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Kids saw too much sometimes, or maybe they saw exactly what adults spent so much energy hiding. That night, after Ellie was asleep, Jack sat on their fire escape despite the cold, looking out at the city lights. His laptop, ancient and held together with duct tape, balanced on his knees as he researched Sloane Everhart. The more he read, the more he understood what he'd signed up for. She'd been tech royalty even before Maxwell Sterling. The only child of Theodore Everhart, who'd built his fortune from nothing, she'd been groomed since birth to take over the empire. Harvard Business School at 20, CEO at 26, when her father had his first heart attack. The media had painted her as cold, calculating, brilliant. Then Maxwell had happened. The photos from before were like looking at a different person. Sloane laughing at galas, her hand in Maxwell's, her eyes bright with something that looked dangerously like hope. Then came the explosion, the cheating scandal, the public humiliation, the board's vote of no confidence that she'd barely survived. But she had survived. She'd come back harder, sharper, turning Everhart Industries into something her father had never imagined. The Ice Queen, they called her now. The woman who'd frozen her heart to build an empire. Jack understood that. He'd frozen parts of himself too when Rachel left. When you've been broken that completely, sometimes ice is the only thing that holds you together. The next morning came too fast and not fast enough. Jack dropped Ellie at school, her backpack bouncing as she ran to join her friends. The teacher pulled him aside, that look of concerned pity he'd grown to hate. Mr. Whitmore, Ellie had another episode yesterday. Her hands, I know. He cut her off, couldn't bear to hear it detailed again. I'm working on it. I'll have the money for her surgery soon. The teacher's expression said she didn't believe him. He didn't blame her. He barely believed it himself. The Everhart Industries building scraped the sky, all glass and steel ambition. Jack stood outside for a full minute, his reflection in the polished doors showing him exactly how out of place he was. His best jacket, the one he wore to court during the divorce, looked like a costume next to the suited executives flowing in and out. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and modern art, everything designed to make visitors feel small. Jack had worked on buildings like this, had installed the frameworks that held them up, but he'd never walked through the front door as anything other than the help. Can I help you? The security guard's tone suggested help was the last thing on his mind. Jack Whitmore, I have a meeting with Miss Everhart. The guard's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. He made a call, his skepticism evident in every movement. Take the executive elevator. Top floor. Someone will meet you. The elevator was larger than Ellie's bedroom. Jack watched the numbers climb, each floor representing a level of wealth he'd never touch. When the doors opened, Marcus was waiting, immaculate, skeptical, and clearly annoyed. Mr. Whitmore? This way. The executive floor was impossibly quiet, the kind of silence that money bought. They passed through an outer office where assistants worked with focused intensity, none of them looking up. Marcus knocked on a massive door, waited for a response, then gestured Jack inside. Sloane's office was a statement in minimalism. No personal photos, no sentimental touches, just clean lines and that incredible view of the city. She stood behind her desk, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than his truck, studying him like he was a problem to be solved. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might have been drunk yesterday, or desperate enough to say anything. I was desperate. Still am. Doesn't mean I wasn't serious. She moved around the desk, her heels silent on the thick carpet. Tell me about your daughter's condition. He wasn't expecting that. Why? Because if I'm going to pay for her surgery, I want to know what I'm paying for. So he told her about the rare neurological condition that made Ellie's hand shake, that would eventually affect her mobility, her speech, everything if left untreated. About the experimental surgery at Johns Hopkins that had an 87% success rate but wasn't covered by insurance. About the mounting medical bills and the ticking clock. 6 months, he finished. The doctors say if she doesn't have the surgery within 6 months, the damage might be irreversible. Sloane was quiet for a long moment. And her mother? Left. Couldn't handle a sick kid and a husband who'd lost everything trying to pay for treatments. Lost everything? He hesitated. That wasn't a story he told. But if he was going to take this woman's money, pretend to be something he wasn't, she deserved some truth. I had a startup, nothing huge, but it was growing. Software for supply chain management. We were doing well, had a few major contracts lined up. Then a bigger company came in, bought out my partner, destroyed my reputation with a few strategic lawsuits I couldn't afford to fight. I lost everything in 6 months, the company, the house, eventually my marriage. What was the company that destroyed you? Does it matter? They won. She studied him with those storm cloud eyes. Everything matters in business, mister. Whitmore Titan Tech Solutions. Something flickered across her face, there and gone too quickly to read. I see. Well, that's the past. Let's discuss the present. The wedding is in 3 weeks. That gives us time to prepare you. Prepare me? You can't walk into that room looking like you do now. You need a suit, a haircut, a story. You need to be able to hold conversations about wine and art and whatever mindless drivel these people discuss between destroying lives. I thought you wanted someone real. I do. But real doesn't mean unprepared. Maxwell will try to humiliate you, and through you, me. Victoria will be worse. She has a talent for finding weak spots and pressing until things break. And what am I supposed to be to you? Boyfriend? Bodyguard? Arm candy? She laughed, that same broken glass sound from yesterday. You're supposed to be unexpected. Someone who doesn't fit their narrative of who I'd end up with. You're supposed to make them wonder what they don't know about you, about me, about us. There is no us. There will be for one night. Look, Mr. Whitmore. Jack. Jack. I'm not looking for you to fall in love with me or pretend to. I'm looking for you to be yourself, just elevated, confident, unimpressed by their wealth because you have something they don't. Which is authenticity. These people have been performing for so long they've forgotten who they really are. You haven't had that luxury. He thought about that, about the performance of wealth, of happiness, of success. So I just have to be myself but in a better suit? Essentially. Though we'll work on your table manners. My table manners are fine. When was the last time you ate at a restaurant with more than 2 forks? He grinned despite himself. Burger King has sporks. That's technically multiple utensils. She almost smiled. He saw it fighting to break through before she controlled it. This is what I'm paying you for. The Sterling wedding is Saturday, December 2nd, at the Montclair estate. Black tie, 7 courses, approximately 300 guests who would sell their grandmothers for good gossip. Sounds delightful. It will be hell. She moved to her desk, pulled out a tablet. I'm going to transfer $10,000 now, as a good faith deposit. The rest after the wedding. There are conditions. Of course there are. No drinking more than 2 glasses of anything. No talking to the press. There will be press. No mentioning our arrangement to anyone. And no matter what happens, what's said, what you see or hear, you don't leave my side unless I explicitly tell you to. What exactly are you expecting to happen? She looked out at the city, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. Maxwell has a way of orchestrating moments. Public proposals were his specialty. He proposed to me at a charity gala with 500 people watching. He'll want to mark his territory, show everyone he's moved on while I haven't. He'll want to see me break. And you won't give him that satisfaction. I can't afford to. She turned back to him. Can you handle that? Being a prop in someone else's drama? Lady, I've been a prop in my own drama for 3 years. At least yours pays better. This time she did smile, small but real. Marcus will schedule your fitting at Armitage and Sons tomorrow. They'll know what to do. Get a haircut at Joseph's on 5th. Tell them to bill me. And Jack? Yeah? Don't fall for any of it. The glamour, the attention, the feeling of being part of that world. It's a show, and when it's over, you go back to your real life and I go back to mine. Trust me, I know exactly where I belong. He stood, pocketed the tablet she handed him with his banking information. My daughter needs this surgery. That's all that matters to me. Good. Keep it that way. As he reached the door, she called out, Jack? The company that destroyed you, Titan Tech. My father owned them at the time. He turned, processing this. Did you know? When I told you yesterday? No, but I looked into it last night. My father has a habit of crushing smaller companies he sees as threats. I had no idea about yours specifically, but I'm sorry. You're sorry? You're paying me $50,000. That's a hell of an apology. It's not an apology, it's a transaction. But the sorry, that's separate. That's real. He studied her, this woman who wore armor made of Armani and indifference. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both of us broken by different parts of the same machine. We're not a pair, Jack. We're a business arrangement. Right. I'll see you tomorrow. He left her standing there, silhouetted against the city she'd conquered, looking like the loneliest person at the top of the world. The fitting at Armitage and Sons was an experience in humiliation and transformation. The tailor, Mr. Chen, circled him like a vulture, tutting at his posture, his shoulders, the way he stood like he was ready to fight or run. You work with your hands, Mr. Chen observed, noting Jack's calluses. Construction? Warehouse now, construction before. Good shoulders, then. We can work with this. He pulled out measuring tape. Ms. Everhart says you need something special, the Sterling wedding. You know about it? Everyone knows. Ms. Everhart hasn't been out publicly with anyone since, well, this will cause quite a stir. That's the point, I think. Mr. Chen looked at him shrewdly. You know what you're walking into? A room full of rich people who'll judge me for breathing wrong. A room full of sharks who smell blood in the water. Ms. Everhart's blood. They've been circling for 3 years, waiting for her to show weakness. You're either her armor or her vulnerability. No pressure, then. The old man smiled. The suit will help. Clothes make the man, they say. Untrue, of course, but the right clothes make the man harder to dismiss. Over the next 2 hours, Jack was measured, draped, pinned. Mr. Chen pulled out fabric Jack couldn't have afforded to look at, let alone wear. The suit that emerged from the back room was midnight blue, so dark it was almost black, with subtle pinstripes that caught the light. Try it on. Jack had worn suits before. Rental tuxes for his own wedding, cheap polyester for job interviews. This was different. This suit fit like it had been waiting for him his whole life. It transformed his warehouse worker's build into something elegant, powerful even. There, Mr. Chen said with satisfaction. Now you look like someone who might actually deserve to stand next to Sloane Everhart. I don't deserve anything. I'm just playing a part. Aren't we all? The tailor adjusted the cuffs. I've been dressing this city's elite for 40 years. You want to know a secret? They're all playing parts. The only difference is they've been doing it so long, they've forgotten it's not real. After the fitting came the haircut. Joseph's was the kind of place where they offered you whiskey while you waited, and everyone spoke in hushed tones. The stylist, someone who went by just Andre, looked at Jack's home-cut hair with visible pain. What have you been doing to yourself? Scissors, mirror, prayer, barbaric. Andre circled him. Good bone structure, though. Strong jaw. We can work with this. An hour later, Jack barely recognized himself. The cut was subtle but transformative, taking years off his face, making him look less like a man beaten down by life and more like someone who might actually belong in Sloane Everhart's orbit. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Car will pick you up Saturday at 6 p.m. Don't be late. S. No pretense, no warmth, just efficiency. He wondered what she was like when she wasn't performing strength, if she ever let herself be anything other than perfect. The week passed in a blur of normal life made surreal by the promise of Saturday. Jack worked his warehouse shifts, picked up Ellie from school, made dinners of mac and cheese and hot dogs, all while his new suit hung in the closet like a portal to another world. "Daddy, you look different," Ellie said Thursday night, studying him over her coloring books. "Got a haircut, baby." "No, it's something else. You look hopeful?" Out of the mouths of babes. He did feel hopeful for the first time in so long. The money would save Ellie. That's all that mattered. The rest, Sloane, the wedding, the strange electricity he felt when she looked at him, none of that mattered. Friday night, his ex-wife called. "I heard you're coming into money," Rachel said without preamble. "How did you... Does it matter?" "Jack, if you can suddenly afford Ellie's surgery, maybe we should revisit the custody arrangement." His blood turned to ice. "You left. You said you couldn't handle it. That was before you had money. Things are different now." "Nothing's different. I'm her father. I've been here every day while you..." "While I what? Couldn't watch her slowly get worse? Couldn't bear to see her suffer? You think that makes you noble, Jack? It just makes you stubborn. It makes me her parent." "We'll see what a judge thinks." She hung up. Jack stood in his kitchen, phone in his hand, the weight of everything crashing down. Rachel could make things difficult. She knew judges, came from money herself. If she wanted to fight for custody now that he could afford Ellie's treatment. His phone rang. "Sloane, second thoughts?" she asked without greeting. "No, well, yes, but not about tomorrow." "Want to talk about it?" "Do you actually care, or are you just protecting your investment?" Silence. "Then both, probably. I'm practical that way." Despite everything, he laughed. "My ex just called, somehow knows I'm coming into money, wants to revisit custody." Vultures circled quickly. "Do you have a lawyer?" "I can't afford a lawyer." "You can now. I'll have Marcus send you some names. Good ones, not the strip mall variety." "Why are you helping me?" "Because I need you functional tomorrow, not distracted by custody threats." A pause. "And because I know what it's like to have someone try to take everything from you when you're already on the ground." "Sloane, don't. Don't make this something it's not. I'll see you tomorrow, Jack. Try to get some sleep." She hung up. Jack looked at his reflection in the dark window, this stranger with the expensive haircut and the weight of the world on his shoulders. Tomorrow he'd walk into a room full of people who'd never missed a meal, never chosen between rent and medicine, never watched their child suffer while feeling helpless to stop it. But he'd also walk in next to Sloane Everhart, who, despite her billions, knew exactly what it felt like to be broken. Maybe that's why she'd chosen him, not because he was nobody, but because he was somebody who understood that sometimes the only way forward is through the performance, through the lie, through the pain. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of December day that made everyone uneasy, like nature itself was putting on a show. Jack dressed carefully, the suit transforming him piece by piece. Ellie watched from his bed, eating cereal despite his protests about milk and expensive fabric. "You look like a prince, Daddy." "Princes don't have daughters who eat cereal in bed. This one does." She grinned, milk on her chin. "Are you going to dance with the sad lady?" "Maybe." "You should. Dancing makes people less sad." Remember when Mommy used to dance? He did remember. Rachel spinning in their tiny apartment, laughing, before the diagnosis, before the bills, before everything went to hell. "Yeah, baby, I remember." The buzzer rang at exactly 6 p.m. A black town car waited outside, the driver stone-faced and professional. Jack kissed Ellie goodbye. Mrs. Patterson from next door would watch her, and stepped into the car like he was stepping off a cliff. Sloane was already inside, and for a moment, Jack forgot how to breathe. She wore red. Not bright red, not attention-seeking red, but deep burgundy that made her skin glow like porcelain. Her hair was up, exposing the elegant line of her neck, and diamonds caught the light at her ears and throat. She looked like a weapon forged in fire and cooled in ice. "You clean up well," she said, her tone giving nothing away. "You look..." He stopped, realizing anything he said would sound either inadequate or inappropriate. Like I'm ready for war? Like you've already won? Something shifted in her expression. Let's hope Maxwell thinks that too. The drive to the Montclair estate took an hour, winding through increasingly manicured landscape until they reached gates that looked like they were guarding heaven or hell, depending on your perspective. The estate itself was a monument to old money trying to look older, all columns and fountains and the kind of gardens that required a staff of dozens. Last chance to run, Sloane said as the car joined a line of others discharging guests. Can't. Already spent some of your money on groceries. Practical. I like that. She smoothed her dress, a gesture that looked like nerves on anyone else but on her seemed more like a warrior checking armor. Remember, you don't leave my side. Wouldn't dream of it. The driver opened the door and Jack stepped out first, offering Sloane his hand. She took it, her fingers cool and steady, and for a moment they stood there, about to enter the arena. Jack. Her voice was soft, meant only for him. Whatever happens in there, whatever they say or do, you're worth more than all of them combined. You're doing this for your daughter. That makes you better than anyone in that room. Before he could respond, she'd composed her face into a perfect mask of indifference and led him toward the entrance, where the sharks were already beginning to circle. The entry hall was a fever dream of flowers and crystal. Everything white and gold like a wedding had exploded and reassembled itself in the most expensive way possible. Guests mingled with champagne flutes, their laughter bright and sharp as breaking glass. Heads turned when they entered. Conversations stuttered, died, restarted in whispers. Jack felt the weight of their gaze, evaluating, dismissing, recalculating. But Sloane moved through it like she was made of titanium, her hand light on his arm, her expression serene. Sloane! A woman materialized from the crowd, 60-something, with the kind of facelift that made her look permanently surprised. How brave of you to come. Helen. Sloane's smile could have cut diamonds. How kind of you to notice. Helen's eyes raked over Jack with obvious curiosity. And this is? Jack Whitmore. Sloane's tone made it clear no further explanation would be offered. Whitmore. I don't know any Whitmores. Now you do, Jack said, offering his hand. Helen looked at it like it might be contaminated before briefly shaking it. How interesting. Come, Sloane, you must say hello to the Weatherbys. They've been dying to see you since the Singapore acquisition. Later, perhaps, Jack and I were just going to get champagne. They escaped, moving deeper into the crowd. Jack could feel the whispers following them like smoke. That was Helen Sterling, Sloane murmured. Maxwell's mother. She never liked me. Not enough breeding, too much ambition. Charming woman. She once told me I'd never be more than new money trying to buy class. What did you say? That old money was just new money that had forgotten where it came from. Jack laughed, surprising himself. Bet that went over well. About as well as you'd expect. She's hated me ever since. They reached the bar and Jack ordered whiskey while Sloane took champagne she didn't drink. The ballroom opened before them, a sea of people who'd never worked a real day in their lives, and somewhere in that crowd was Maxwell Sterling, the man who'd broken Sloane Everhart. There, she said quietly, her fingers tightening imperceptibly on his arm. Jack followed her gaze. Maxwell Sterling looked exactly like his photos, golden, confident, the kind of handsome that came from good genes and better dentistry. He stood near the dance floor with his bride-to-be, Victoria Chen, who was beautiful in the way that required team effort and substantial funding. You okay? Jack asked quietly. Fine. But her pulse was visible at her throat, quick as a trapped bird. Want to know what I see when I look at him? What? A guy who's trying too hard. Look at him, checking every mirror, adjusting his tie every 30 seconds, scanning the room like he's afraid of missing something. He's nervous. He's getting married. He's nervous because you're here. Because he knows he fucked up. Because he's marrying second best and everyone knows it. Sloane looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since they'd arrived. You don't know that. Sure I do. You want to know how? She nodded, seemingly despite herself. Because I was him, once. I had everything. A wife who loved me, a company on the rise, a future that made sense. And I was so busy checking mirrors and adjusting my tie that I missed what mattered. He's going to spend his whole marriage wondering what you're doing, who you're with, if you think about him. That's his punishment. That's not much of a punishment. It's worse than you think. Trust me." Before she could respond, the crowd parted, and Maxwell Sterling was walking toward them with the inevitability of a car crash. Maxwell Sterling moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his smile camera ready, his bride trailing behind him like an expensive accessory. Jack felt Sloane's entire body tense beside him, though her face remained perfectly composed. Up close, Maxwell was smaller than Jack had expected, one of those men who compensated for their average height with excessive confidence and impeccable tailoring. "Sloane." Maxwell's voice was warm honey over broken glass. "You came." "I was invited." Her tone could have frozen champagne. "Of course. I wanted you to be here, to show there are no hard feelings." The audacity of it made Jack's jaw clench. No hard feelings, as if betrayal was something you could smooth over with wedding invitations and imported flowers. Victoria appeared at Maxwell's shoulder, her smile so bright it could have powered a small city. "Sloane! You look amazing. Doesn't she look amazing, Max?" "Stunning as always," Maxwell agreed, his eyes never leaving Sloane's face, searching for something, pain perhaps, or longing. Some evidence that she still cared enough to hurt. "And you must be—" Victoria turned to Jack, her expression calculating behind the sweetness. "Jack Whitmore." He didn't offer his hand, just stood there, solid and unmovable as a mountain. "Jackson Acquisitions," Sloane said smoothly, the lie rolling off her tongue like silk. "Oh, which firm?" Maxwell's interest sharpened. "My own." Jack met his gaze steadily. "I acquire things other people have discarded. Amazing what value you can find in what others throw away." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Maxwell's smile flickered, and Jack saw what Sloane probably hadn't: uncertainty. This golden boy wasn't used to men who didn't defer to him, who didn't care about his money or connections. "How interesting," Victoria said, her voice pitched just a little too high. "And how did you two meet?" "Coffee shop," Sloane said. Jack's daughter was drawing pictures, and one thing led to another. "You have a daughter?" Victoria's surprise was genuine. Apparently men with children didn't fit her vision of who Sloane Everhart would date. "Ellie. She's 6. How sweet." "Max and I are thinking about children. Aren't we, darling?" Maxwell's response was a beat too slow. Eventually, Jack caught the flash of hurt in Victoria's eyes, quickly hidden, so there were cracks in paradise already. He filed that information away. "We should find our table," Sloane said. "Lovely to see you both. Congratulations on your special day." She turned to go, but Maxwell caught her arm. The touch lasted only a second before Jack stepped forward, not threatening but present enough that Maxwell released her immediately. "Save me a dance?" Maxwell said, trying to recapture his swagger. "For old time's sake?" "I don't think that would be appropriate." Sloane's voice was steady, but Jack could see the pulse hammering at her throat. "Come on, one dance. Victoria won't mind, will you, sweetheart?" Victoria's smile was starting to crack at the edges. "Of course not." "I mind," Jack said quietly. Everyone looked at him. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't made a scene, but something in his tone made Maxwell take a half step back. "I don't recall asking you," Maxwell said, trying to recover his authority. "No, but you're asking my date to dance at your wedding, which seems like the kind of thing I should have an opinion about." Jack smiled, the kind of smile he'd learned in warehouses and construction sites, the kind that suggested violence without promising it. "Congratulations again on the wedding. I'm sure you two deserve each other." He placed his hand on the small of Sloane's back, gentle but proprietary, and guided her away. He could feel her trembling slightly, though whether from anger or something else, he couldn't tell. They found their table, strategically placed not too close to the wedding party, but not insultingly far either. The other guests at their table were already several drinks in, eyeing them with the hungry curiosity of people who lived for gossip. "That was interesting," said a woman with diamonds the size of quail eggs. "I'm Margaret Ashworth. I don't believe we've met, Mr. Whitmore." "Jack Whitmore." "And what do you do, Mr. Whitmore?" Besides rescue our dear Sloane from awkward encounters? I solve problems. How delightfully vague. Sloane, darling, where have you been hiding this one? I haven't been hiding him, Margaret. I've been keeping him to myself. There's a difference. Margaret laughed, bright and false. Of course. Though one has to wonder what kind of problems Mr. Whitmore solves. Corporate, personal, romantic. The kind that require getting your hands dirty, Jack said, taking a sip of his whiskey. Something tells me you wouldn't be familiar with the concept. The table went quiet. Margaret's face flushed beneath her foundation. Jack grew up in construction, Sloane said smoothly. He understands building things from the ground up. It's refreshing being with someone who creates rather than just acquires. The dig at Maxwell wasn't subtle, but it was effective. The table's attention shifted, everyone suddenly remembering that Maxwell had built his fortune by marrying into it, first with Sloane, now with Victoria. Dinner was served in 7 elaborate courses, each more pretentious than the last. Jack watched Sloane push food around her plate, her appetite clearly absent. She was performing beautifully, laughing at the right moments, deflecting personal questions with practiced ease, her hand occasionally touching his arm in a gesture that looked natural but felt rehearsed. You need to eat something, he murmured during a lull between courses. I can't. Try. You're running on adrenaline and champagne. That's going to crash eventually. She looked at him, surprised by the concern. Since when do you care? Since you're paying me to get through this intact, can't have you fainting during the speeches. She smiled, the first genuine expression he'd seen from her all evening. Practical. That's me. The speeches began with Maxwell's father, a silver-haired patriarch who spoke about legacy and family values with the conviction of someone who'd never had either questioned. Then came Victoria's sister, who told a story about true love that felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Then Maxwell stood. When I met Victoria, he began, his voice carrying across the hushed ballroom, I was at a crossroads. I'd lost my way, made mistakes, hurt people I cared about. His eyes found Sloane across the room. The entire assembly seemed to hold its breath. But Victoria showed me that the past doesn't define us. That we can choose to be better, to love better. She gave me a second chance I probably didn't deserve. Jack felt Sloane's hand find his under the table, her fingers ice cold. Some people, Maxwell continued, still looking at Sloane, are meant to teach us lessons. Others are meant to be our future. Victoria is my future, my redemption, my everything. The room erupted in applause. Victoria beamed, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. But Jack saw what others missed. The way Maxwell's jaw clenched, the way his hand shook slightly as he raised his champagne glass. The man was lying, not just to the room, but to himself. I need air, Sloane whispered. They slipped out onto a terrace overlooking the gardens, where fairy lights turned everything magical and false. Sloane gripped the railing, her knuckles white. He's still in love with you, Jack said. No, he's in love with the idea of me. With winning. Maxwell doesn't know how to love people, only victories. Then why does it hurt? She turned to look at him, surprised by his directness. Because I was stupid enough to believe I was different, that I was more than just another acquisition. You were. How could you possibly know that? Because he's here, marrying someone else, and he still can't stop looking at you. You don't look at acquisitions that way. You look at them that way when you know you destroyed the only real thing you ever had. She stared at him, something shifting in her expression. Who was she? The woman who taught you that? My wife. Ex-wife. He leaned against the railing beside her. Rachel. We met in college back when I thought I was going to change the world with sustainable technology. She believed in me when nobody else did. Then life happened. The business, the baby, the bills. When everything fell apart, she said I'd changed, that I wasn't the man she'd married. She was right. But you're still fighting. For your daughter. That's different. Ellie didn't choose any of this. She deserves better than a sick body and a broken father. You're not broken. Neither are you. They stood there, two damaged people in expensive clothes, pretending to be whole for an audience that fed on their pain. There you are. Victoria's voice cut through the moment like a scalpel. She stood in the doorway, her wedding dress catching the light, looking like every fairy tale princess Jack had never believed in. "Sloane, could I speak with you? Privately?" Jack started to protest, but Sloane squeezed his arm. "It's fine. I'll be right back." The two women walked to the far end of the terrace. Jack couldn't hear their words, but he could read their body language. Victoria pleading, Sloane rigid, then something shifting. Victoria pulled out her phone, showed Sloane something that made her step back. When Sloane returned, her face was pale. What did she want? To gloat. To show me pictures of their honeymoon suite, their future house, the nursery they're already planning. Her voice was hollow. She wanted me to know that she won. Did she? Did she what? Win? Sloane looked back at the ballroom, where the party continued in their absence, all light and laughter and lies. I used to think whoever ended up with Maxwell won. Now I think whoever ends up with him loses, they just don't know it yet. The band had started playing, classic wedding songs that made Jack think of his own reception, back when he'd believed in forever. Couples were moving onto the dance floor, that particular kind of drunk that made everyone look graceful. "Dance with me," he said suddenly. "What?" "Dance with me. Right here. No audience, no performance, just dance." "That's not what you're being paid for." "I'm not asking as the guy you're paying. I'm asking as someone who knows what it's like to stand on the outside looking in at a life that used to be yours." She hesitated, then stepped into his arms. They moved slowly, badly, nothing like the practiced couples inside. Her head came just to his shoulder, and he could smell her perfume, something expensive and sad. "I don't know how to do this anymore," she whispered. "Dance? Be human. Feel things. Every time I try, I remember what it cost me last time. So don't try. Just be." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. It's just not easy." She pulled back to look at him. "Why are you being kind to me? You have your money, or will. You could just play your part and leave. Because you're not the only one who's forgotten how to be human. Maybe I thought if I could help you remember, I might remember too." Before she could respond, the terrace doors burst open. Maxwell stood there, drunk enough to be dangerous, his tie askew. "There you are," he slurred. "My two favorite people, the Ice Queen and her... What are you exactly? Her bodyguard? Her revenge fuck?" "Maxwell." Sloane's voice was sharp. "You're drunk. Go back to your bride." "She's boring," he said, stumbling closer. "God, she's so boring. She agrees with everything, laughs at all my jokes, never challenges me. Not like you. That's not my problem anymore. Isn't it?" He laughed, ugly and broken. "Come on, Sloane. We both know why you're here. You wanted to see if I'd really go through with it. Well, I did. I married her. Happy? Congratulations. That's it? That's all you have to say?" He was getting louder, angrier. 3 years, Sloane. 3 years of you shutting me out, and you show up to my wedding with this nobody." Jack stepped forward, putting himself between Maxwell and Sloane. "I think you need to go back inside." "Or what? You'll hit me? Please, do it. Give me an excuse to have you thrown out." "I don't need to hit you. You're doing a fine job of humiliating yourself without my help." Maxwell's face flushed red. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Sure I do. A small man who had something extraordinary and threw it away for something easy. Now you're drunk at your own wedding, harassing your ex because you finally realized what you lost." "You don't know anything about me and Sloane." "I know enough. I know you're the kind of man who proposes in public so she can't say no, who cheats in her own bed because the violation is part of the thrill, who marries someone else but can't stop looking at what he destroyed." Maxwell swung at him, a sloppy, telegraphed punch that Jack easily sidestepped. Maxwell stumbled, caught himself on the railing. "You want to know the truth?" Maxwell said, his voice cracking. "I loved her. I loved her so much it scared me. She was smarter, stronger, better than me in every way. So I found someone who wasn't, someone who made me feel like the man instead of the accessory." "That's not love," Sloane said quietly. "That's ego." "Maybe. but it felt like love. He looked at her, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, Sloane. For all of it. I'm so fucking sorry. I know, she said. So am I. Victoria appeared in the doorway, mascara running, her fairy tale wedding dissolving into reality. Max? What are you doing? He looked at his new wife, then back at Sloane, then stumbled inside without a word. Victoria followed, but not before shooting Sloane a look of pure hatred. We should go, Sloane said. They left through a side entrance, avoiding the main ballroom where the party continued, oblivious to the drama on the terrace. The valet brought the car around, and they slipped into the darkness like thieves. The drive back was silent for the first 20 minutes. Then Sloane started laughing, a sound somewhere between hysteria and relief. She couldn't finish, laughing harder. A disaster. Perfect. It was perfect. Did you see his face when you called him small? I thought he was going to have a stroke. And Victoria, God, she looked ready to murder me. Probably was. You just showed her what her marriage is going to be, competing with a ghost. Sloane's laughter faded. I'm not a ghost. No, but you might as well be. He turned you into this perfect thing in his memory, something Victoria can never live up to. I was never perfect. No, but you were real. That's scarier than perfect. She looked at him in the passing streetlights. How did you get so wise about relationships? Your marriage ended too. Yeah, but I learned from it. The problem with people like Maxwell is they never learn. They just repeat the same patterns with new people. And what did you learn? That love isn't about finding someone who makes you feel good about yourself. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Rachel made you want to be better? No, Ellie does. Rachel made me want to be safe. There's a difference. They pulled up outside Jack's building, the contrast between the Montclair estate and his neighborhood jarring. Sloane looked up at the crumbling brick, the graffiti, the broken streetlight. This is where you live. This is where I survive. Living is something else entirely. Jack, the money will clear Monday? First thing. Good. He started to get out, then stopped. You did good tonight. You faced him down, didn't break. That took courage. I had help. You would have been fine without me. You just needed someone to remind you that you're not the one who should be ashamed. She reached over, touched his hand. Thank you. For more than just tonight. For seeing me as something other than the Ice Queen or the victim. You're welcome. He got out of the car, watched it disappear into the night. Mrs. Patterson was asleep on his couch, the TV playing infomercials. He paid her, sent her home, then checked on Ellie. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the edge, her breathing slightly labored but steady. Monday, he thought. Monday the money would clear, and Tuesday he'd schedule the surgery. Wednesday, Ellie would start getting better. That's all that mattered. But as he sat on his fire escape, still in his expensive suit, he couldn't stop thinking about Sloane's laugh, the weight of her hand in his, the way she'd looked at him like he was something more than just hired help. His phone buzzed, a text from Sloane. Thank you for being exactly what I needed. He didn't respond. Couldn't. Because what she'd needed was someone disposable, someone who could play a part and disappear. And that's exactly what he'd been. The money would clear Monday, and they'd never see each other again. That was the deal. That was always the deal. But deals, Jack was learning, were easier to make than to keep. Sunday arrived gray and quiet, the kind of day that made the whole city feel hungover. Jack woke to find Ellie already up, sitting at their small table, drawing. What you working on, baby? The pretty lady in the red dress. Jack looked at the drawing. It was clearly meant to be Sloane, though Ellie had given her wings. Why wings? Because she was sad but trying to fly anyway, like birds with broken wings. They still try. Sometimes his daughter saw too much. The day passed in normal Sunday routine. Laundry at the laundromat, grocery shopping with careful calculation of every penny, Ellie's medications that barely helped anymore. But underneath the normalcy, Jack felt something shifting, like tectonic plates realigning. His phone rang that evening. Sloane. I need to see you, she said without preamble. The job's done. Money clears tomorrow. This isn't about the money. Please. Something in her voice made him agree. Mrs. Patterson was willing to watch Ellie again, though she gave him a knowing look. Fancy lady again? It's not like that. Never is, until it is. Sloane's address led him to a penthouse that seemed to float above the city. The doorman looked at him skeptically, but let him up when he gave his name. The elevator opened directly into her apartment, all glass and modern art and carefully curated emptiness. She was standing by the windows, still in what looked like yesterday's clothes, holding a glass of wine she wasn't drinking. Victoria's dead, she said. What? Car accident, last night, after the wedding. She was driving back to their hotel alone. Maxwell was too drunk, stayed at the estate. She hit a tree. They're saying she was crying too hard to see. Jack crossed to her, took the wine glass from her trembling hand. That's not your fault, isn't it? If I hadn't gone, if Maxwell hadn't... Stop. You didn't make him act like an ass. You didn't make her drive upset. You didn't cause any of this. I wanted her to hurt. When she showed me those pictures, when she gloated, I wanted her to know what it felt like. And now she's dead. And that's tragic, but it's not your responsibility. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. How can you be so sure? Because I blame myself for everything too. When my business failed, when Rachel left, when Ellie got sick, I thought if I just carried enough guilt, it would somehow fix things. It doesn't. It just makes you too heavy to move forward. She collapsed against him, sobbing. He held her, this woman who'd hired him to be a prop, who'd paid him to pretend, now clinging to him like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Everyone will blame me, she whispered against his chest. They'll say I killed her. Let them. You know the truth. The truth is I hated her. The truth is she betrayed you, and you had every right to hate her. That doesn't mean you wanted her dead. They stood there, holding each other in her empty palace, two broken people finding comfort in shared damage. Finally, she pulled back, wiping her face. I'm sorry. This isn't what you signed up for. No, but it's what's happening. You should go. The money will clear tomorrow. We're done. Sloane, please, just go. He left, but not before seeing the pills on her kitchen counter, the empty bottles that suggested this wasn't her first bad night. He made a mental note to check on her tomorrow, after the money cleared, just to make sure she was okay. The money did clear Monday morning, $50,000 sitting in his account like a miracle. Jack called Johns Hopkins immediately, scheduled Ellie's surgery for the following week. The relief was overwhelming, physical, like finally being able to breathe after years underwater. But he couldn't stop thinking about Sloane, alone in that penthouse with her guilt and her pills. He texted her, surgery scheduled, thank you. She didn't respond. Tuesday's newspapers were brutal. Victoria's death was front page, with speculation about what had happened at the wedding to send her driving alone in tears. Someone had leaked stories about Maxwell's confrontation with Sloane, painting her as the vengeful ex who'd ruined their wedding. Jack tried calling her. No answer. Wednesday, he saw a gossip blog post. Sloane Everhart checks into rehabilitation facility. Following wedding tragedy. The photo showed her being escorted into a discreet building upstate, looking fragile and lost. The article speculated about drug abuse, mental breakdown, the pressures of being a female CEO. They made her sound weak, broken, finished. Jack wanted to go to her, but what right did he have? He was hired help, paid in full. They'd had a business transaction that got more personal than intended, but it was still just business. Wasn't it? Thursday was Ellie's pre-surgery appointment. The doctors were optimistic, talking about success rates and recovery times. Ellie was brave, asking questions about the procedure with scientific curiosity rather than fear. Will I be able to draw better after? She asked. You'll be able to do everything better, the doctor assured her. Good. I want to draw the pretty lady properly. Daddy, can we visit her after I'm better? We'll see, baby. But Jack knew they wouldn't. That wasn't how these stories ended. Rich women didn't end up with warehouse workers. Broken people didn't heal each other. Life wasn't a fairy tale, no matter how much his daughter wanted to believe it was. Friday arrived with unexpected rain. Jack was at work, loading trucks and trying not to think about Sloane in some sterile facility, probably hating herself for showing weakness. His phone rang. Unknown number. Jack Whitmore? Yes? This is Marcus, Ms. Everhart's assistant. She's requesting to see you. She's in rehab. She checked out this morning. Against medical advice, but that's hardly unusual for her. Can you come to the office? I'm working. She said to tell you it's important, that she has information about your ex-wife you need to hear. Rachel. What could Sloane possibly know about Rachel? I'll be there in an hour. He told his supervisor he had a family emergency, changed in the bathroom, and took the subway uptown. The Everhart Industries building looked the same, but something felt different. The security guard recognized him, waved him through. Marcus met him at the elevator, looking exhausted. She's not well, he said quietly. The last week has been difficult. The board is pressuring her to take a leave of absence. The press is relentless. And Victoria's death, it wasn't her fault. You and I know that, but Maxwell is grieving and angry and looking for someone to blame. He's making things very difficult. They reached Sloane's office. She was standing by the windows again, but this time she looked fragile, diminished. The power suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a sweater that made her look younger, more vulnerable. You came, she said without turning around. You said it was about Rachel. That was a lie. I needed to see you and knew you wouldn't come otherwise. He should have been angry, but he wasn't. Why did you need to see me? Because you're the only person in my life who doesn't want something from me. My board wants my resignation. My father wants me to be stronger. The media wants me to break. Maxwell wants me to suffer. But you? You got what you wanted. Your daughter's surgery? You have no reason to be here except... Except what? She turned to face him. Except maybe you actually give a damn. Do you? Give a damn about me? The question hung between them, dangerous and honest. Yes, he said simply. Why? Because you're trying so hard to be perfect that you're forgetting to be human. Because you saved my daughter but can't save yourself. Because when you laugh, really laugh, it sounds like hope. She crossed to him, stopped just out of reach. I'm a mess, Jack. I've been taking pills to sleep, drinking to forget, working to avoid feeling. Victoria's death broke something in me. Or maybe it revealed what was already broken. So fix it. It's not that simple. Sure it is. It's just not easy. She laughed, that broken glass sound. You said that before. At the wedding. It's still true. I have a proposition for you. Another one? Come away with me. Just for a weekend, after Ellie's surgery, after she's recovering. I have a cabin upstate. No phones, no media, no performance. Just quiet. Why? Because I think I forgot who I was before all of this. Before Maxwell, before the company, before the armor. And somehow, when I'm with you, I remember pieces. I'm not a therapist, Sloane. I can't fix you. I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm asking you to be there while I try to fix myself. Jack stood there, looking at this woman who'd gone from client to something he couldn't quite name, and felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. I can't make promises about after the surgery. Ellie will need me. I know. That's why I'm asking for just a weekend. 2 days to remember how to breathe. She moved to her desk, pulled out a folder. But first, there's something you need to know. About Rachel. What about her? She's been in contact with Maxwell. Has been for weeks, even before the wedding. She's been feeding him information about you, about your situation with Ellie. That's how everyone knew you were coming into money. She told him. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Jack sank into a chair processing this new cruelty. Why would she do that? Maxwell paid her. He wanted dirt on whoever I brought to the wedding. When he found out it was you, someone with nothing to lose, he got desperate. Rachel gave him your financial records, medical bills, everything. She sold out her own daughter's medical information? For $30,000. I have the wire transfer records. Sloan handed him the folder. My lawyers found it when we were investigating the leak about my rehab stay. Maxwell's been busy trying to destroy anyone he thinks contributed to Victoria's death. Jack stared at the evidence, his ex-wife's signature on documents authorizing the release of their daughter's medical records to a third party. The rage that filled him was clean and precise, nothing like the messy anger he'd felt during the divorce. She's going to use this money to fight for custody, he said quietly. She'll claim she can provide better for Ellie now. Not if you fight back. I have lawyers, good ones. They can bury her in paperwork until Ellie's 18 if necessary. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to afford anything. I'm offering to help. Why? Your debt to me is paid. This isn't about debt. She sat across from him, leaning forward. Jack, I've spent 3 years building walls so high I can't see over them anymore. You're the first person who's made me want to tear them down. That terrifies me, but not as much as the thought of keeping them up. You barely know me. I know you chose your daughter over your pride. I know you stood between me and Maxwell when you had no reason to protect me. I know you see me as a person, not a symbol or a conquest or a stepping stone. Do you understand how rare that is in my world? Jack looked at her, this woman who commanded billions but couldn't command her own heart to stop breaking. The weekend after Ellie's surgery. 2 days, but I need to be able to check in with her. Of course. Relief flooded her features. And Jack? Thank you. For what? For not running when I showed you who I really am. You haven't shown me who you really are. You've shown me who you're afraid you are. There's a difference. Before she could respond, Marcus knocked urgently. Miss Everhart, your father is here. Theodore Everhart entered like a force of nature, 73 years old but still capable of changing the atmospheric pressure of a room. He took in Jack's presence with one sharp glance, dismissing him as irrelevant. Sloan, we need to discuss the board situation. Not now, Dad. Yes, now. They're calling an emergency meeting. They want you out. He finally acknowledged Jack. Who's this? Jack Whitmore. Jack, my father. Theodore's eyes narrowed. Whitmore. You own that supply chain startup. Efficient system, shame it didn't scale. It would have scaled fine if Titan Tech hadn't destroyed it. Business is war, Mr. Whitmore. Casualties are inevitable. He turned back to Sloan. This is who you brought to the Sterling wedding, a failed entrepreneur playing dress-up. That's enough, Sloan said sharply. Is it? You're facing a coup, Sloan. The board smells blood in the water. Your little breakdown, checking into rehab, the Sterling scandal, they think you're weak. I'm not weak. No? Then why are you wasting time with... He gestured at Jack. This? Instead of fighting back. Jack stood. I should go. Yes, Theodore agreed. You should. No, Sloan said. Jack stays. Father and daughter stared at each other, a lifetime of power struggles condensed into seconds. You're making a mistake, Theodore said finally, just like you did with Maxwell. You let emotion cloud your judgment. My judgment is fine. Your judgment led you to rehab while your company burns. My company isn't burning. Stock is down 3%. That's a correction, not a catastrophe. The board doesn't see it that way. Then I'll convince them otherwise. Theodore laughed, cold and sharp. With what? You've given them ammunition, Sloan. The pills, the drinking, this. He gestured at Jack again. Whatever this is, you're playing right into their hands. Get out, Sloan said quietly. Excuse me. I said get out. You're not helping. You're just another voice telling me I'm not enough. I've had enough of those to last a lifetime. Theodore's face darkened. I built this company from nothing, and I've tripled its value. I've earned the right to handle this my way. Your way is going to cost you everything. Then at least it'll be my choice. Theodore left, his disappointment lingering like smog. Sloan collapsed into her chair, suddenly looking exhausted. He's right, you know, she said. The board will use everything against me. So fight back. With what? I'm a mess. I can barely get through a day without medication. I checked myself out of rehab after less than a week. I'm exactly as weak as they think. Jack moved around the desk, knelt beside her chair so they were eye level. You're not weak. You're human. There's a difference. The board doesn't care about human. Then maybe you need a new board. She laughed bitterly. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't it? You own 43% of the company. You just need to convince another 8% to side with you. You've been researching. I told you I owned a company once. I know how boards work. I also know that shareholders care about profit, not personal drama. Show them the numbers. Remind them what you've built. While high on pills and crying in rehab? While fighting through personal trauma and still delivering results. That's not weakness, Sloan. That's strength. She looked at him for a long moment. How are you real? I'm not. I'm just a guy who needs his daughter healthy and happened to meet a woman who needs to remember she's more than her worst moments. Marcus knocked again. Ms. Everhart, the board is convening in an hour. Sloan straightened, and Jack watched her transform. The vulnerability disappeared, replaced by steel. The soft sweater suddenly looked like armor. The exhaustion became determination. Tell them I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. And Marcus? Pull every earnings report from the last 3 years. Also, get me the psychological evaluation protocols for CEO fitness. If they want to play dirty, we'll show them what dirt really looks like. Marcus smiled slightly. Yes, ma'am. When he left, Sloan turned to Jack. I have to go fight for my company. I know. Will you? She hesitated. Will you wait? I don't know how long this will take, but I'd like to see you after. I'll wait. She kissed him then, quick and fierce, like she was going to war and needed something to fight for. Then she was gone, leaving Jack alone in her office with the taste of her lipstick and the echo of her father's contempt. He waited 3 hours. Marcus brought him coffee, seemingly amused by his presence. She's never asked anyone to wait before, he said. Never? Ms. Everhart doesn't do personal at the office. The fact that you're here at all is unprecedented. I'm unprecedented? You're something. I haven't figured out what yet. When Sloan finally returned, she looked like she'd been through battle. Her hair was slightly mussed, her makeup smudged, but her eyes were bright with victory. I won, she said simply. How? I reminded them that in 3 years I've made them more money than my father did in 20. Then I pointed out that half of them have been through rehab themselves, and the other half should be. Glass houses and stones, you know. That's it? That, and I threatened to take the company public and dilute their shares if they voted against me. Fear and greed, Jack. The only languages that matter in business. You're terrifying. I'm necessary. There's a difference. She moved to the window, looking out at the city she'd conquered. But I'm also tired. So tired of fighting for every inch of ground. So stop fighting. It's not that simple. It never is. But maybe it should be. She turned to him. Is that what you did? Stopped fighting? I stopped fighting the wrong battles, started focusing on the ones that mattered. Ellie's health, my sobriety. Yeah, I had my own pill phase after Rachel left. Rebuilding something from the ashes instead of trying to resurrect what was already dead. And that works? Some days. Other days I still want to burn down everything that hurt me. But Ellie needs a father more than I need revenge. I don't have an Ellie. I don't have anyone who needs me like that. You have yourself. Maybe that's enough. She smiled sadly. Is it weird that a stranger knows me better than anyone else in my life? We're not strangers. We're just people who met at the exact moment we needed to. His phone buzzed. The hospital. Panic flooded him as he answered. Mr. Whitmore? This is Dr. Patterson. We need to move Ellie's surgery up. There's been a development. What kind of development? Her condition is progressing faster than anticipated. We'd like to operate tomorrow if possible. Tomorrow? But I know it's sudden, but we have an opening, and frankly, waiting might compromise the outcome. Yes. Okay. Tomorrow. He hung up, his hands shaking. Sloan crossed to him immediately. What is it? Ellie's surgery. They want to do it tomorrow. Her condition is getting worse. Okay. We can handle this. What do you need? I need to go. I need to be with her. Of course. I'll drive you. You don't have to. Jack, let me help. The drive to his apartment was quiet. Sloane didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes, just drove while Jack stared out the window, trying not to imagine everything that could go wrong. Mrs. Patterson was reading to Ellie when they arrived. His daughter looked smaller somehow, more fragile, her hands shaking more noticeably than even a week ago. Daddy! She brightened when she saw him, then noticed Sloane. The pretty lady. Did you come to see my drawings? If that's okay, Sloane said, sitting on the floor next to Ellie's bed without hesitation, designer jeans and all. Ellie showed her the notebook, page after page of drawings. Houses without leaking roofs, families holding hands, and repeatedly, a woman in a red dress with wings. That's you, Ellie explained. Daddy said you were sad, so I gave you wings to fly away from the sad. That's very thoughtful, Sloane said, her voice thick. Ellie, baby, we need to talk, Jack said, sitting on her bed. The doctors want to fix you tomorrow. Tomorrow? But I have art class tomorrow. I know, but this is more important. They're going to make your hands stop shaking, make you feel better. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep. And when you wake up, I'll be right there. Ellie considered this, then looked at Sloane. Will you be there too? Sloane glanced at Jack, who nodded. If you want me there, I'll be there. Good. You can hold Daddy's hand so he's not scared. I'm not scared, baby, Jack said. Yes, you are. Your voice gets funny when you're scared, but it's okay. I'm brave enough for both of us. Jack pulled her into his arms, this tiny warrior who faced the world with crayons and courage. Over her head, he saw Sloane watching them with an expression he couldn't read, longing maybe, or grief for something she'd never had. They spent the evening together, the three of them. Sloane ordered Chinese food from a place that definitely didn't deliver to Jack's neighborhood, but somehow made an exception. They watched Ellie's favorite movie, some animated thing about a girl who saves her village. Ellie fell asleep between them on the couch, her head on Jack's shoulder, her feet in Sloane's lap. I should go, Sloane whispered. Stay. Please, I don't want to be alone tonight. She stayed. After they'd put Ellie to bed, they sat on his fire escape despite the cold, sharing a bottle of whiskey Jack had been saving for either celebration or catastrophe. Tell me she'll be okay, he said. She'll be okay. You don't know that. No, but I know she has you. That has to count for something. It didn't count enough to keep her healthy in the first place. That's not how biology works, Jack. I know, I need someone to blame, and I'm the only one here. Rachel's here too, in a way. Blame her if you need to blame someone. I did, for a long time. But blame is exhausting. It takes so much energy to hate someone. I know, Sloane said quietly. I've been hating Maxwell for 3 years. Look where it got me. It got you to that wedding. That got you to me. Maybe hate has its purposes. That's a dangerous philosophy. Everything's dangerous. The trick is deciding what's worth the risk. She looked at him in the dim light from the street. Am I worth the risk? I don't know yet. Are you asking? Maybe. After tomorrow. After we know Ellie's okay. And if she's not okay, then I'll be here for that too. They sat in silence, two people on a fire escape, surrounded by the noise of a city that didn't care about their fears or hopes. But somehow, in that moment, it was enough. The next morning came too fast. Jack had barely slept, checking on Ellie every hour, watching her breathe. Sloane had stayed on the couch, unwilling to leave, but understanding this wasn't her space to invade. At the hospital, everything moved with terrifying efficiency. Forms were signed, Ellie was prepped, reassurances were given that felt hollow as promises. Ellie was brave until the moment they wheeled her away. Then she reached for Jack with tears in her eyes. Daddy, what if I wake up different? Different how, baby? What if I wake up and I'm not me anymore? Jack kissed her forehead. You'll always be you. The best parts of you have nothing to do with shaky hands or sick bodies. Those parts will still be there when you wake up. Promise? Promise. They took her away, and Jack felt part of himself go with her. Sloane was there, her hand finding his, anchoring him to the moment. "She'll be okay," she said again. "Say it until I believe it. She'll be okay. She'll be okay. She'll be okay." The waiting room was purgatory decorated in cheerful colors. Other parents sat with the same hollow eyes, the same barely contained terror. Time moved like molasses, each minute an hour, each hour a lifetime. 3 hours in, Sloane's phone rang. She looked at it, declined the call. "You can take it," Jack said. "It's the board. They can wait." "Sloane, Jack, there is nothing more important than being here right now. The board, the company, all of it is just noise. This, Ellie, this is what matters. You barely know us. I know enough. I know that you make me want to be better. I know that Ellie sees the world like it should be instead of how it is. I know that sitting here, terrified for a little girl I've met 3 times, feels more real than anything I've done in 3 years." Before Jack could respond, Dr. Patterson appeared. Jack stood so fast he got dizzy. "The surgery went perfectly," the doctor said immediately. "Better than we could have hoped. The tremors should stop completely within a few weeks. She'll need physical therapy, but we expect a full recovery." Jack's knees gave out. Sloane caught him, held him as he sobbed. Relief, exhaustion, 3 years of fear pouring out in a hospital waiting room. "Can I see her?" "She's in recovery. Still sleeping, but you can sit with her." Ellie looked so small in the hospital bed, but her hands were still. For the first time in 2 years, they weren't shaking. Jack held one gently, marveling at the stillness. "Thank you," he whispered to whoever might be listening. "Thank you." Sloane stood in the doorway watching. "She's going to be okay." "Yeah, she is." He looked up at her. "That cabin you mentioned, when she's recovered, when she's back to being Ellie, I want to go, not because you're paying me or because I owe you, but because I want to know who you are when you're not performing. And I want to figure out who I am when I'm not just surviving. That might be dangerous. Everything worth doing is." Ellie stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy? I'm here, baby." "Did they fix me?" "Yeah, they did." "Good." She noticed Sloane. "You stayed." "I promised I would." "Daddy, is she our family now?" Jack and Sloane looked at each other, the question hanging between them like a bridge they weren't sure they were ready to cross. "We're figuring it out, baby," Jack said finally. "Good. Families should be figured out, not just happen to." Ellie's wisdom, even drugged in post-surgery, was devastating. "Can I have juice?" The normal request broke the spell. Jack went to find juice, leaving Sloane sitting beside Ellie's bed, holding her still hand and looking like she'd found something she didn't know she'd been searching for. The next days blurred together. Ellie recovered with remarkable resilience, her hand steadier each day, her spirits impossible to dampen. She drew constantly, pictures of her surgery where the doctors were superheroes, pictures of the 3 of them that she insisted weren't family portraits, but looked exactly like family portraits. Sloane came every day, bringing art supplies, books, games. She dealt with board calls from the hospital corridor, ran her empire from a tablet while sitting in a tiny room that smelled like antiseptic and hope. She was there when Ellie took her first steps without stumbling, when she drew her first straight line in 2 years, when she cried from frustration during physical therapy. "You don't have to be here," Jack told her on day 3. "I know. That's why I want to be." Rachel showed up on day 4. She walked in like she had rights, like 3 years of absence could be erased by biology. "I heard the surgery went well." It did. Jack positioned himself between Rachel and Ellie's bed. "I want to see her." "Now you want to see her?" After selling her medical information to Maxwell Sterling, Rachel had the decency to look ashamed. "That's not... I needed the money." "For what? Another yoga retreat? Another finding yourself journey?" "For lawyers. To fight for custody." "You can't be serious." "She's my daughter too, Jack. And now that she's healthy, now that you can afford proper care, now that I can afford it? Where were you when I was selling everything to pay for treatments? Where were you when she cried at night from the pain? I couldn't watch her deteriorate." "So you left. And now that the hard part's over, you want back in?" "Mommy." Ellie's voice was small, confused. Rachel pushed past Jack. Hi, baby, Mommy's here. Why? The simple question destroyed Rachel's composure. Because I missed you. You left. Daddy said you had to find yourself. Did you find yourself? Yes. Good. Now you can leave again. The rejection from her 6-year-old daughter was brutal. Rachel's face crumpled. Ellie, I'm your mother. No. You're the lady who left. Sloane is here every day. She brings me books and holds Daddy's hand when he's scared. That's what mothers do. Who the hell is Sloane? Rachel turned on Jack, then saw Sloane standing in the doorway with coffee. Her? You're letting some random woman around our daughter? She's not random, Ellie said firmly. She's ours. The possessiveness in her daughter's voice made Jack's heart clench. But Rachel's expression turned calculating. Is she why you suddenly have money? Are you sleeping with her for cash? Get out, Jack said quietly. I have a right to know who's around my daughter. You have no rights. You abandoned her. You sold her private information. You're nothing to her but DNA and disappointment. We'll see what a judge says about that. Rachel looked at Sloane. Hope you know what you're getting into. He'll drag you down eventually. He dragged me down. The only thing being dragged here, Sloane said coolly, is you. Out of this room. Now. Rachel stood her ground for a moment, looking between Jack, Sloane, and her daughter. This isn't over. I'll get a court order if I have to. Try it, Sloane said, stepping fully into the room. I have a team of lawyers who would love nothing more than to destroy someone who sold a sick child's medical information for profit. They're quite bored with corporate law. Rachel's face went pale. She looked at Jack one more time, something like regret flickering in her eyes, then left without another word. The silence she left behind was heavy with unspoken truths. Daddy, Ellie said quietly, I don't want to go with her. You won't, baby. I promise. How can you promise? Jack looked at Sloane, who nodded slightly. Because sometimes the good guys have better lawyers. Ellie seemed to accept this, then turned to Sloane. Are you really ours? Sloane sat on the edge of the bed, careful of the IV lines. I'd like to be, if that's okay with you and your dad. It's okay with me. Daddy? Jack met Sloane's eyes over his daughter's head. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a stranger in a coffee shop. Now she was here, ready to fight his ex-wife, sitting in a hospital room like it was exactly where she belonged. Yeah, baby, it's okay with me too. 2 weeks later, Ellie was home and recovering remarkably. Her hands were steady, her gait improving daily with physical therapy. The improvement was so dramatic that even the doctors seemed surprised. Jack had returned to work, but now with hope instead of desperation driving him. The custody threat from Rachel had gone quiet after Sloane's lawyers sent what Marcus had called a very educational letter about consequences. It was a Thursday evening when Sloane appeared at his door with takeout from 3 different restaurants. I didn't know what you'd want, she explained, holding bags that probably contained enough food for a week. You could have texted. I could have. She hesitated. That weekend away. The cabin. Are you still interested? Ellie's still recovering. I know. I meant all of us. The cabin is huge. There's plenty of room. Unless that's weird. Everything about us is weird, Jack pointed out. We met because you paid me to be your date. We're whatever we are because my kid decided you were family. Normal wasn't ever really an option. So that's a yes? Ellie, Jack called. How do you feel about going to a cabin this weekend? Ellie appeared in the doorway, marker stains on her face from her latest art project. Does it have a fireplace? Yes, Sloane answered. Can I make s'mores? Absolutely. Then yes. Can I bring my art supplies? Bring everything, Sloane said. There's a whole room you can turn into a studio if you want. Ellie squealed and ran to start packing immediately, leaving the adults alone with enough Chinese food to feed an army. You sure about this? Jack asked. Taking on someone else's kid for a weekend is different than hospital visits. I'm sure about very little these days, Sloane admitted, but I'm sure I want to try. Is that enough? It's a start. They drove up Friday afternoon, Ellie chattering excitedly the entire way about everything she could see now that her hands didn't shake. Birds on wires, license plates, the way leaves moved in the wind. Things that had been blurry were now sharp, and she wanted to document every single detail. The cabin was not what Jack had expected. When wealthy people said cabin, he'd assumed they meant mansion pretending to be rustic. But this was genuinely modest, a real log cabin with just 4 rooms nestled in wood so thick you couldn't see another building in any direction. My grandfather built it, Sloane explained, carrying bags inside. Before the money, before everything. He used to come here to remember who he was before success complicated everything. And your father? Hates it. Says it reminds him of being poor. He hasn't been here in 20 years. But you come? When I need to think. Or when I need to stop thinking. Depends on the day. They settled in with surprising ease. Ellie immediately claimed the sunroom as her art studio, spreading supplies across the floor with organized chaos. Jack built a fire while Sloane made soup from scratch, something he wouldn't have imagined her knowing how to do. You cook? My grandmother taught me. Before my father got rich, before we moved to the city, she said knowing how to feed yourself was the difference between living and just surviving. Smart woman. She was. She would have liked you. Yeah? You're real. She valued that above everything. Said too many people forgot how to be human when they learned how to be wealthy. After dinner, they sat by the fire, Ellie curled between them with a book about dragons. She fell asleep halfway through chapter 3, her breathing even and untroubled. Jack carried her to bed, tucking her in with the practiced ease of single parenthood. When he returned to the living room, Sloane had poured 2 glasses of wine and was staring into the fire like it might have answers. Talk to me, he said, sitting beside her. About what? Whatever's putting that look on your face. She was quiet for a long moment. I got a call from Maxwell today. He's entering grief counseling. He wanted to apologize, said Victoria's death made him realize how destructive he'd been. You believe him? I don't know, maybe. Grief does strange things to people. So does guilt. He asked if I could forgive him. Not take him back, just forgive. What did you say? Nothing. I hung up. She took a sip of wine. Was that cruel? That was self-preservation. There's a difference. Is there? Sometimes I can't tell anymore. Jack turned to face her fully. Sloane, he betrayed you with your best friend, tried to destroy you professionally, and then made a scene at his own wedding. You don't owe him forgiveness. But carrying the anger is exhausting. Then put it down. Not for him, for you. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means you stop letting the wound define you. Is that what you did with Rachel? I'm working on it. Every day I don't call her and scream is a small victory. She laughed, soft and genuine. We're quite a pair. You said that before, at your office. I was wrong then. We weren't a pair. We were 2 broken people using each other. Now I think we might be 2 broken people figuring out how to be whole. Together. The word hung between them, loaded with possibility. Jack set down his wine, took hers, and set it aside too. Then he kissed her, slow and deliberate, nothing like the desperate kiss in her office before the board meeting. This was a choice, clear and conscious, made by 2 people who understood the cost of trusting again. When they pulled apart, Sloane's eyes were bright with tears. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. I didn't think I'd feel this again, want this again. This? Hope. Connection. The terrifying possibility that maybe I don't have to do everything alone. You don't. How can you be sure? We've known each other 3 weeks. Because Ellie chose you. And she's got better judgment than either of us. That night they shared a bed but did nothing more than hold each other. 2 people relearning what intimacy meant when it wasn't about conquest or performance, but simply about not being alone in the dark. Saturday morning arrived with snow, unexpected and perfect. Ellie pressed her face against the window, her excitement infectious. Can we build a snowman? Please, I've never built one without my hands shaking. They bundled up and ventured out, Ellie directing the construction with the seriousness of an architect. The snowman ended up lopsided and ridiculous, with stick arms that kept falling off and a carrot nose that pointed sideways. It's perfect, Ellie declared. It's falling apart, Jack pointed out. So? Everything falls apart eventually. That doesn't make it less perfect right now. Sloane looked at Jack. When did your 6-year-old become a philosopher? Sometime between the surgery and breakfast. I blame the anesthesia. They were laughing when Sloane's phone rang. She looked at it, frowned. I need to take this. It's my father. She walked away toward the tree line, but Jack could still hear her voice carrying on the cold air. No, Dad. I'm not in the city. That's not your business. What do you mean an emergency board meeting? They can't do that without 48 hours' notice. She came back, her face pale. I have to go. The board is trying to push through a vote while I'm gone. If I'm not there, go, Jack said immediately. But the weekend will be here when you get back. Go fight for your company. Come with me, both of you. Sloane, please, I know it's not the weekend we planned, but I don't want to do this alone anymore. And maybe it's time the board sees who I'm fighting for, not just what. Jack looked at Ellie, who was already nodding enthusiastically. Can I bring my drawings? She asked. Bring everything, Sloane said. They drove back to the city in Sloane's car, Ellie asking questions about the board, about companies, about why grown-ups fought over money when there were so many more interesting things in the world. Because money is power, Sloane explained, and power makes people forget what's actually interesting. That's silly. Most adult things are. The Everhart Industries building looked different on a Saturday, empty of the usual bustle, like a stage after the play had ended. But the boardroom was full, 12 people in expensive suits looking like vultures who'd found something dying. Theodore Everhart stood at the head of the table, and Jack understood immediately. This wasn't just a board coup. This was a father-daughter battle being played out through proxy. Sloane, how nice of you to join us. This meeting is illegal. 48 hours notice is required for any vote affecting leadership, unless there's immediate danger to shareholder value. Your recent behavior qualifies. My recent behavior has included closing 3 major deals and increasing quarterly profits by 7%, while dating a warehouse worker and playing house with his child. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Several were looking at Jack and Ellie, who'd followed Sloane in despite her suggestion they wait outside. Hi! Ellie waved at the room. I'm Ellie. Are you the people trying to fire Sloane? That's mean. Someone at the table, a woman with silver hair, actually smiled. Dad, Sloane said, her voice deadly calm. You're really going to do this? Try to destroy everything I've built because I won't live the life you planned for me? I'm trying to save the company from your emotional instability. My emotional instability? I'm not the one who crushed dozens of small companies to build this empire. I'm not the one who taught his daughter that love was weakness and trust was stupidity. I taught you to be strong. You taught me to be like you. Cold, calculating, alone. And I was, for years. Look where it got me. It got you to the top. It got me to a place where I needed pills to sleep and had to hire someone to stand next to me at my ex's wedding because I'd pushed everyone away. She looked around the table. You want to talk about shareholder value? Let's talk. Since I took over as CEO 3 years ago, stock is up 42%. We've expanded into 4 new markets. We've acquired 6 companies that are all now profitable. I did that while dealing with public humiliation, while fighting through personal trauma, while learning that everything I'd been taught about success was a lie. Sloane, Theodore started, I'm not finished. You want to vote me out because I'm dating someone you don't approve of? Because I'm finally trying to have a life outside this building? Fine. Vote. But know this, I own 43% of this company. If you vote me out, I sell every share. The market will panic, stock will crater, and you'll all lose millions. You wouldn't. Try me. I'm tired of fighting for people who only see my value in what I can produce for them. She looked at Jack and Ellie. I've recently learned there are people who value me for who I am, not what I can do. That's worth more than all of this. The silver-haired woman spoke up. Perhaps we should discuss this more carefully. Sloane has been an exemplary CEO despite personal challenges. Because of them, another board member added, she's shown resilience that's reflected in the company's performance. Theodore's carefully orchestrated coup was falling apart. Jack could see it in his face, the recognition that he'd overplayed his hand. I call for a vote of confidence in Sloane Everhart as CEO, the silver-haired woman said. Seconded, said three voices simultaneously. The vote was 9-3 in Sloane's favor. Theodore looked like he'd swallowed glass. This isn't over, he told Sloane. Yes, it is. You're fired, Dad. The room went silent. You can't fire me. I founded this company. And you gave me the power to run it. That includes hiring and firing board members. You're out, effective immediately. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is taking this long to do it. Theodore left, his dignity in tatters, his empire now fully in the hands of the daughter he'd tried to control. The remaining board members quickly agreed to table any further discussion until Monday, fleeing the awkwardness like it was contagious. When they were alone in the boardroom, Sloane collapsed into a chair. Did you just fire your father? Jack asked. I did. How do you feel? Free, terrified, guilty, proud. Is it possible to feel all of that at once? Daddy says feelings are like colors, Ellie offered. Sometimes they mix and make new feelings nobody has names for. Your daddy sounds smart. He is. That's why we keep him. Sloane laughed, pulling Ellie into a hug. Want to see something cool? She led them to the elevator, using a key card to access the roof. The city spread out below them, glittering in the afternoon sun. Ellie gasped, running to the railing, safely enclosed in glass, trying to see everything at once. This is all yours, Jack asked. The building, the company, the responsibility. She looked at him. It used to feel like power. Now it just feels like weight. So put it down. I can't. Too many people depend on it. Then share it. You don't have to carry everything alone. She leaned against him, watching Ellie point at buildings and clouds with equal excitement. Is this crazy? Us? We barely know each other. We know the important things. Which are, you fight for what matters. You show up even when it's hard. You gave my daughter wings in her drawings before you gave her hope in real life. That's enough to start with. And you? What do I know about you? That I'm broken but trying. That I choose my daughter over my pride every time. That I see you, not your money or your power or your pain. Just you. That might be enough, she said softly. Marcus appeared on the roof, looking apologetic. Ms. Everhart, the press has gotten wind of the board meeting. They're gathering outside. Of course they are, she sighed. What's the angle? Your father is telling everyone you're having a breakdown, that you fired him in a fit of instability. And our response? Whatever you want it to be. She thought for a moment, then smiled. No response. Let him rage. The numbers speak for themselves. The board members who supported you are willing to speak to the press. Tell them thank you, but no. This isn't about press. It's about doing the job. She looked at Jack and Ellie. Though we should probably leave through the parking garage. No need to subject Ellie to the vultures. They made their escape like conspirators, Ellie thrilled by the adventure of sneaking past photographers. Back at Jack's apartment, the adrenaline crash hit all of them at once. Pizza? Jack suggested. Pizza, Ellie agreed. They ate cheap pizza on paper plates, sitting on the floor because the table was covered in Ellie's art supplies. It should have felt like a come-down after the drama of the boardroom, but instead it felt like coming home. I have something to tell you both, Sloane said, wiping grease from her fingers. I'm thinking about stepping back from the CEO position. Jack's surprise must have shown because she quickly continued, not because of the board or my father, because I've been doing this for 3 years, and I've proven everything I needed to prove. The company is stable, profitable, growing. I could keep doing it forever, but I woke up at the cabin this morning and realized it was the first time in 3 years I hadn't immediately thought about work. I thought about snow and breakfast and whether Ellie would want hot chocolate. That felt more important than any deal I've ever closed. So what would you do? I don't know, travel, paint? I used to paint. Maybe start a foundation for kids like Ellie who need medical care they can't afford. something that builds instead of acquires. That sounds lonely, Ellie said with 6-year-old directness. It does. Yeah, you should do it with us. We're good at stuff. What kind of stuff? Daddy's good at fixing things and being strong. I'm good at art and making people smile. You're good at being brave and fighting bullies. Together, we could do anything. Jack watched Sloane's face transform. Walls he hadn't even realized were still up, finally crumbling. You know what, Ellie? You might be right. I usually am. Can we have ice cream now? The domesticity of it, debating ice cream flavors, negotiating bedtime, reading stories, felt surreal after the corporate battlefield of the afternoon. But it also felt right in a way Jack hadn't expected. After Ellie was asleep, he found Sloane on the fire escape despite the cold. She'd wrapped herself in his jacket, looking younger and more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. You okay? I fired my father today. You did? He's the only family I have left. Had. Family isn't just blood. Ellie said we're family. Kids know things adults forget. She turned to him. I'm going to mess this up. I don't know how to be normal, how to be in a relationship that isn't about power or transaction. I only know how to buy things, not build them. So learn. We'll teach you. What if I can't? Then at least you tried. That's more than most people do. She kissed him then, different from before, desperate and hopeful in equal measure. I want to try. I want to learn to be human again. You never stopped being human. You just got really good at hiding it. They went inside to his bed this time and made love like it was both an ending and a beginning, the end of who they'd been alone, the beginning of who they might be together. It wasn't perfect or choreographed. It was messy and real and exactly what they both needed. Afterward, lying in his narrow bed that was too small for two people but somehow just right, Sloane traced patterns on his chest. The cabin, she said. We should go back. Finish the weekend we started. When? Every weekend, or whenever Ellie wants to build snowmen, or when the city gets too heavy to carry. That's a lot of weekends. I have a lot of time now that I'm not fighting my father for control. What about the company? I'll find someone who wants it more than I do, someone who still believes in empires instead of families. And then we figure out what comes next. Together. The word hung between them again, but this time it felt like a promise instead of a question. Sunday morning brought chaos in the form of Rachel's lawyers. The custody papers were delivered with the breakfast Jack had been making, turning pancakes into panic. She's really doing this, he said, reading through the filing. Sloane took the papers, scanning them with practiced efficiency. She's claiming financial inability to provide before, but changed circumstances now. She's also suggesting that your relationship with me constitutes an unstable environment for Ellie. Can she win? Not if I have anything to say about it. She pulled out her phone. Margaret? I need you and the team at Jack Whitmore's apartment. Yes, now. Yes, Sunday. Triple overtime. I don't care. Within an hour, Jack's small apartment was transformed into a legal war room. 3 lawyers in casual Sunday clothes sat around his kitchen table, laptops open, documents spreading across every available surface. Ellie watched from the doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed dragon, understanding that something serious was happening even if she didn't grasp the details. Margaret Liu, Sloane's lead attorney, was a force of nature wrapped in a Stanford sweatshirt. She read through Rachel's filing with the kind of focus that made Jack understand why Sloane paid her more than most people made in a lifetime. She's making 3 arguments, Margaret said, adjusting her glasses. 1, that she's now financially stable enough to provide for Ellie. 2, that your relationship with Miss Everhart exposes Ellie to an unstable environment due to the recent press coverage and corporate drama. And 3, this is the interesting one, that you deliberately kept her away from Ellie during the medical crisis. That's insane, Jack said. She left. She walked away when things got hard. Do you have proof? Texts, emails, anything that shows she abandoned Ellie? I have the divorce papers. She didn't even ask for custody then. Good. What else? Sloane pulled out her phone. I have the wire transfer record showing she took $30,000 from Maxwell Sterling to provide information about Jack, including Ellie's medical records. Margaret's eyes lit up. She sold her daughter's medical information? To hurt me, Sloane confirmed. Maxwell wanted dirt on whoever I brought to his wedding. That's beautiful, legally speaking. No judge will give custody to someone who trafficked their child's private medical information for profit. Margaret turned to Jack. What about the stability argument? The relationship with Miss Everhart? We've been together less than a month, Jack said. But I've been financially supporting Ellie's medical care, Sloane added, paid for the surgery that saved her from permanent disability. That could go either way, generous benefactor or undue influence. Margaret tapped her pen against the table. We need to be strategic. The family court judge assigned to this case is Patricia Hendricks. She's traditional, values stability, doesn't like drama. Then we're screwed, Jack said. Our entire relationship has been drama. No, Margaret corrected. Your relationship has been two adults navigating complex circumstances while prioritizing a child's welfare. That's the narrative we present. Ellie approached the table slowly. Are you trying to keep Mommy away? Everyone froze. Jack knelt beside his daughter. Baby, Mommy wants you to live with her. But I live here. I know, and I want you to stay here. These people are helping make sure that happens. Oh. Ellie considered this. Can I help? How would you help, sweetheart? Sloane asked gently. I could tell the judge I want to stay with Daddy. And you? Is that allowed? Margaret leaned forward. Actually, yes. At 6, Ellie's preference would be considered, though not determinative. But Ellie, you'd have to talk to a stranger about your feelings. That might be scary. Scarier than surgery? Different scary. Ellie straightened her shoulders. I'm brave. Daddy taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what's right even when you're scared. Jack's throat tightened. His 6-year-old daughter had more courage than most adults he knew. There's something else, Margaret said, pulling up something on her laptop. Rachel's lawyer is Richard Henley. He's good, but he's also Maxwell Sterling's personal attorney. Maxwell is funding this? Sloane's voice was ice. It appears so, which means this isn't really about custody. It's about hurting you through Jack and Ellie. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Jack watched Sloane's transformation. The vulnerable woman who'd shared his bed last night disappeared, replaced by the CEO who'd built an empire. Then we destroy him, she said simply. Legally, financially, publicly. I'm done playing defense. Sloane, Jack warned. This is about Ellie, not revenge. It's about both. Maxwell is using your daughter as a weapon against me. That ends now. She turned to Margaret. I want everything, his financial records, his communications with Rachel, his entire history. And I want Theodore investigated too. Your father? He's been too quiet since I fired him. Either he's planning something or he's already done it. Find out which. Margaret nodded, already typing. This is war then? They brought war to a 6-year-old's doorstep. They don't get to act surprised when I fight back. The lawyers worked through lunch, Chinese takeout containers mixing with legal briefs. Ellie drew at her art table, occasionally bringing pictures to the adults. A judge with a kind face, their apartment with hearts around it, Sloane with a sword fighting dragons. Why does Sloane have a sword? Jack asked. Because she protects us from bad things, Ellie said matter-of-factly. By evening, they had a strategy. Margaret would file an emergency response to Rachel's petition, including the evidence of her selling Ellie's information. They'd request an expedited hearing given the circumstances. And they'd present a united front, not as a new, unstable relationship, but as a family that had formed around Ellie's needs. The hearing will probably be Friday, Margaret said. Can you both take the day off? I'll lose my job if I do, Jack said. No, you won't. Sloane's voice was firm. Because you're not going back to that warehouse. Sloane, I'm starting a foundation for children's medical care. I need someone to run it. Someone who understands what families go through, who won't let bureaucracy get in the way of helping kids. You can't just create a job for me. I'm not. I'm creating a foundation that needs leadership. You happen to be qualified. I worked in a warehouse. You ran a tech startup. You understand systems, logistics, efficiency. More importantly, you understand desperation and hope. That's what qualifies you. Jack wanted to argue, but Ellie interrupted. Does this mean we're rich now? No, baby, Jack said. It means Daddy would have a different job. One where your hands don't hurt at night? He looked at his daughter, too perceptive for her years. His hands did hurt, years of manual labor taking their toll. Yeah, one like that. Good. You deserve a job that doesn't hurt. Monday came with media attention. Someone, likely Theodore or Maxwell, had leaked the custody battle to the press. The narrative was ugly. Billionaire CEO home wreck struggling family, read one headline. Another suggested Sloane was buying Ellie's affection to hurt Maxwell. Don't read them, Jack said, finding Sloane on his fire escape at dawn, scrolling through her phone. They're calling me a predator. Saying I targeted you to get back at Maxwell. We know the truth. The truth doesn't matter if the judge believes the headlines. Hey. He took her phone, set it aside. Look at me. We're going to get through this, together. How are you so calm? Because I've already lost everything once. I know what rock bottom looks like. This isn't it. This is just noise. She leaned into him, drawing strength from his certainty. I'm scared, Jack. Not of losing the company or the money. Scared of losing you and Ellie. You won't. You can't promise that. Watch me. That afternoon, Theodore Everhart did his damage. He appeared on a financial news program, expressing concern for his daughter's mental state, suggesting the board should reconsider their vote of confidence. Within hours, Everhart Industries' stock had dropped 12%. Sloane watched from Jack's couch, Ellie curled beside her, both of them eating ice cream directly from the container. Ellie because she was 6, Sloane because sometimes ice cream was the only appropriate response to fathers who couldn't stop trying to control you. Is your daddy mad at you? Ellie asked. Very mad. Why? Because I won't be who he wants me to be. That's silly. You're already who you are. You're right. But some people think we should be who they imagine instead of who we are. Like Mommy, Ellie said quietly. She wanted me to be not sick. When I couldn't be not sick, she left. Sloane pulled the little girl closer. That's her loss. You're perfect exactly as you are. Even with shaky hands? Your hands don't shake anymore. But even when they did, especially when they did, that's when you were bravest. Jack watched from the doorway, his heart cracking open. This woman who'd hired him to be a prop was now holding his daughter like she was precious, like she was worth protecting. The money, the surgery, that had been transaction. This was something else entirely. Tuesday brought Rachel's response to their filing. She claimed Jack had poisoned Ellie against her, that Sloane's money came with strings, that the entire relationship was a business arrangement that had gotten out of hand. She's not entirely wrong about that last part, Sloane said, reading the documents. It hasn't been business since that first night at the hospital, Jack said. Maybe not even since the coffee shop. When did you know? That it was more than just the deal? When you stayed, after the surgery. You had no reason to be there, but you stayed anyway. I had every reason, I just didn't understand them yet. Margaret called with an update. The judge agreed to an expedited hearing. Friday, 9 a.m. She's also ordered a home visit from Child Services. They'll come Thursday. Thursday? Jack looked around his apartment. The cracked walls, the water stains, the general shabbiness that no amount of cleaning could hide. I'll handle it, Sloane said. You can't handle poverty, Sloane. It's not a problem to be solved. No, but I can make sure they see what matters. That Ellie is loved, cared for, thriving. The rest is just paint and plaster. Wednesday, Sloane did something that made the financial news explode. She announced she was stepping down as CEO of Everhart Industries, effective immediately, to focus on philanthropic efforts. She would retain her ownership stake, but hand operational control to the current CFO, a competent woman who'd been loyal through every crisis. You actually did it, Jack said, watching the announcement on his laptop. I said I would. People say a lot of things. Following through is different. I'm good at following through. Ask anyone who's tried to stop me. Why now? Before the hearing? Because I want the judge to see that I'm choosing Ellie over the empire. That this isn't about money or power, it's about family. Your father will lose his mind. My father lost claim to my choices when he tried to destroy me for making them. That evening, Maxwell called Jack directly. The audacity of it was breathtaking. We need to talk, Maxwell said without preamble. No, we don't. This has gone too far. Victoria's dead, Sloane's destroying her career. You're caught in the middle with a sick kid. My kid is fine. No thanks to you. I want to make a deal. Not interested. 50,000, cash. You disappear, take your daughter, start over somewhere else. Rachel drops the custody suit. You're trying to buy me off? I'm trying to save everyone from more pain. Sloane's lost herself. This obsession with you, it's not healthy. The only unhealthy obsession here is yours. You can't stand that she moved on. She hasn't moved on. She's using you to hurt me. Maxwell, Jack said, summoning all his patience, she doesn't think about you at all. You're not the villain in her story anymore. You're just a mistake she's learned from. You don't know her like I do. You're right. I know her better. I know her without the performance, without the armor. I know her at 3 a.m. when she can't sleep because she's worried about a 6-year-old's surgery. I know her laughing at bad jokes and burning pancakes and singing off key in the shower. You knew Sloane Everhart, the CEO. I know Sloane, the person. This won't last. She doesn't know how to do normal. Neither do I. Maybe that's why it works. Maxwell hung up. 20 minutes later, Margaret called. He withdrew his financial support for Rachel's case. Her lawyer just quit. So it's over. Not quite. Rachel got a new attorney, public defender level, but competent. She's proceeding alone. Thursday's home visit was a disaster that turned into something else. The social worker, Mrs. Chen, arrived to find Ellie teaching Sloane and Jack to make paper airplanes. The apartment filled with them, every surface covered in colorful paper aircraft. We're having a flying contest, Ellie explained seriously. Sloane's winning, but Daddy says she's cheating by using physics. I'm using knowledge, Sloane protested. That's not cheating. Mrs. Chen watched them, making notes. She toured the apartment, seeing the peeling paint and water stains, but also the wall of Ellie's art, the fully stocked kitchen, the medications carefully organized with charts and schedules. Tell me about your relationship, she said to Jack and Sloane. They looked at each other, the entire strange story between them. It's new, Jack said finally, but real. How did you meet? Coffee shop, Sloane said. Ellie introduced us, actually. She has a talent for seeing what adults miss. And you're financially supporting them? I paid for Ellie's surgery, yes, but that was separate from my relationship with Jack. Separate how? I would have paid for any child's surgery if I could. Jack being who he is to me now. That happened after. Mrs. Chen interviewed Ellie alone while Jack and Sloane waited in the kitchen, holding hands like teenagers outside the principal's office. When she emerged, Mrs. Chen's expression was unreadable. Ellie is very clear about what she wants, which is to stay here with both of you. She was quite eloquent about it, actually. Said you're building something new and she wants to help. She said that? Among other things, she also said her mother makes her sad, but she forgives her because holding Matt is heavy. Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. You have a remarkable daughter, Mr. Whitmore. I know. My report will reflect that. After she left, they collapsed on the couch, emotionally exhausted. Ellie climbed between them, arranging their arms around her like a nest. Did I do good? You did perfect, baby. Good. Can we have pizza for dinner? The normalcy of it, pizza and homework and bedtime stories, felt like grace after the week's chaos. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. Jack wore his one good suit, the one from the sterling wedding that now felt like a lifetime ago. Sloane wore simple black, elegant but understated. Ellie insisted on wearing her favorite dress, the one with pockets she could fill with treasures. The courthouse was a monument to bureaucracy, all long hallways and fluorescent lights. Rachel was already there, looking older somehow, worn down by choices that had led her here. Jack, she said, approaching them. Not now, Rachel. I just wanted to say, whatever you want to say can wait until after. The courtroom was smaller than Jack had expected. more office than theater. Judge Patricia Hendricks looked exactly like her reputation. Serious, traditional, no nonsense. Rachel's new lawyer made her case first. She'd changed, she claimed. The therapy she'd been in, the job she'd found, the apartment she'd rented. She was ready to be a mother now. And where was this readiness when Ellie needed surgery? Margaret asked on cross-examination. I was overwhelmed. Jack and I had just divorced. The divorce was final a year before Ellie's condition worsened. You left after the diagnosis. I couldn't watch her deteriorate. So you left that to Mr. Whitmore? I wasn't strong enough then. I am now. What changed? Rachel hesitated. I realized what I'd lost. When? When did you realize this? When I heard about the surgery, that she was better. So you realized you wanted to be a mother only after the hard part was over. That's not... You sold your daughter's medical information to Maxwell Sterling for $30,000. True or false? Rachel's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. I needed money for lawyers. To fight for custody you didn't want until your daughter was healthy. Rachel had no answer for that. When it was Jack's turn, he spoke simply. About the nights in hospitals, the medications, the physical therapy. About Ellie's courage and humor through it all. About building a life from ruins and finding unexpected grace in unexpected places. Mrs. Everhart's involvement, the judge asked. How would you characterize it? She saved my daughter's life, Jack said. But more than that, she showed up. Every day since the surgery, she's shown up. Not with money or gifts, but with presence. She reads to Ellie, helps with homework, teaches her about business and art and being brave. She's teaching me too, that maybe we don't have to do everything alone. Sloan testified next, calm and clear. I'm not trying to replace Ellie's mother. I'm just trying to be present in her life, to support her and Jack as they build something better than what they had before. You recently stepped down as CEO. Why? Because Ellie asked me once if I was going to disappear like people do. I wanted to show her that some people stay, that some things matter more than money or power. And Mr. Whitmore? Sloan looked at Jack. He reminded me how to be human. That's worth more than any empire. The judge called Ellie last, speaking to her gently in chambers with only the court reporter present. She was gone 20 minutes that felt like hours. When Judge Hendricks returned, her expression gave nothing away. Custody battles are always difficult, she began. They require the court to make decisions that will shape a child's entire future based on incomplete information about complex human relationships. Jack's heart hammered against his ribs. In this case, however, the decision is relatively clear. Mrs. Whitmore abandoned her daughter during a medical crisis. She sold private information about that daughter for personal gain. She only sought custody after the child's health improved and financial support was secured. Rachel made a sound like breaking. Mr. Whitmore, by contrast, has been present every day. He's provided stable care under difficult circumstances. He's put his daughter's needs consistently above his own. Your Honor, Rachel's lawyer started, I'm not finished. The court is aware of Ms. Everhart's involvement. While the relationship is new, there's no evidence it's detrimental to Ellie. If anything, Ms. Everhart's support has improved the child's circumstances dramatically. She looked directly at Rachel. Parenting is not a convenience to be picked up when conditions are favorable. It's a commitment that persists through difficulty. You abandoned that commitment. Mr. Whitmore did not. Custody is awarded to Mr. Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore will have supervised visitation one Saturday per month if she chooses to exercise it. Rachel left immediately, not looking back. Jack felt no victory, only relief. Outside the courthouse, Ellie danced on the steps despite the cold. We won! We're still a family. We were always a family, baby. But now it's official. Can we celebrate? Ice cream for breakfast? It's 10 a.m. Ice cream for brunch then? Sloan laughed, catching Ellie mid-spin. Ice cream for brunch sounds perfect. They found a diner that served ice cream with waffles, an abomination that delighted Ellie and horrified the waiter. As they ate, Jack's phone buzzed with texts from Margaret. Theodore is backing down. The stock recovered. The board is standing by my resignation. It's over. All of it? All the fighting, anyway. Now comes the harder part, which is learning how to be normal, happy, present. Together, Ellie said firmly, getting ice cream on her nose. We learn together. 2 months later, they were back at the cabin. Spring had transformed the woods into something magical, all green and gold and possibility. Ellie ran through the trees, her movements sure and steady, no trace of the tremors that had defined her for so long. She's different, Sloane observed, watching from the porch. Healthy does that. Not just healthy. Happy, settled. She knows she's safe now. We all do. The foundation was up and running, already helping 12 families with medical expenses. Jack ran it with the same intensity he'd once brought to his startup, but now with purpose beyond profit. Sloane consulted, invested, built partnerships, using her connections for something that mattered. They'd kept Jack's apartment, but spent most weekends at the cabin. It had become their place, where they could be themselves without performance or pretense. I love you, Sloane said suddenly, the words hanging in the spring air like a revelation. I know. You know. You stepped down from a billion-dollar company to have ice cream for brunch with a 6-year-old. That's love. When did you know you loved me? The hospital. When you held my hand while Ellie was in surgery. You didn't have to stay, but you did. That's when I knew. That was months ago. Love doesn't follow schedules. Ellie ran up, breathless and bright. There's a bird nest with babies. Can we keep them? They have their own family, baby. But we could be their second family, like how Sloane is our second family. I thought I was your first family now, Sloane said. You're not first or second. You're just ours. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Ellie drawing, Jack reading, Sloane working on plans for the foundation, it struck Jack how ordinary it all was. How wonderfully, perfectly ordinary. They'd found each other in crisis, built something from desperation, but now they were just a family doing family things. I want more, Sloane said suddenly. More what? More of this. More time, more ordinary, more everything. Okay? That's it? Okay? What else would I say? You want more? We'll make more. I might want a baby someday. Jack looked at her, surprised. Really? Maybe. Would that be weird? Our whole relationship is weird. A baby would just fit the pattern. I want a baby, Ellie announced. A sister. Brothers are loud. How do you know brothers are loud? Timothy at school has 3. They're all loud. Fair point. Sloane was quiet for a moment. I never thought I'd have this. Family, home, love that wasn't about transaction or power. Neither did I. But here we are. Here we are. Later, after Ellie was asleep, they stood on the porch watching stars appear in the darkening sky. The city felt 1,000,000 miles away, their old lives even further. Thank you, Sloane said. For what? For being exactly what I needed when I didn't know what that was. You paid me, remember? We're even. No. The money was for the wedding. Everything after, that was choice. Best choice I ever made. Even with all the drama, the custody battle, the media, my father, especially with all that, it showed me who you really are when everything's falling apart. Who am I? Someone who stays. She kissed him then, soft and certain, a promise without words. Inside, Ellie coughed in her sleep, and they both froze, listening, still trained to fear every sound. But it was just a cough, normal and harmless, and they relaxed into each other again. We should go in, Sloane said. We should. They didn't move. Jack? Yeah? I'm happy. Really, actually happy. I didn't think I'd ever be that again. Good. That's it? Good? What else is there? You're happy. Ellie's healthy. We're together. That's everything. And it was. Not perfect, not without challenges, but everything that mattered. They'd built something from the ruins of their separate disasters, something stronger than what had broken before. Inside, warm and safe, Their daughter dreamed of birds and nests and families that chose each other. Outside, the world continued its relentless spin, full of corporate battles and custody fights and people who confused money with meaning. But here, in this cabin built by a grandfather who understood the difference between success and happiness, they'd found something better than either of them had thought possible. They'd found home. Not in a place, but in each other, in the choice to stay when staying was hard, to love when love was risky, to build when it would have been easier to remain in ruins. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal, while below, two broken people held each other and discovered they weren't broken at all, just bent into shapes that fit together perfectly, scars aligning like a map to somewhere better than where they'd been.